Hey, this is Guy from New Plastic, and today we'll be modeling a butterfly clutch and a rubber clutch for the enamel pins we made in our previous tutorial. Be sure to check out the pack of customizable pins where you can easily add your own designs and quickly create your own custom CG pins. You got 3 different pin shapes, 7 different materials, and 2 different clutches. Link is in the description if you feel like you need it. It's a great way to support the channel, as well as subscribing as a patron or YouTube member, where you can also get lots of project files, free products, and early access to stuff, but mostly just help the channel grow and help me make better and more invested content for y'all. Huge shout out to my sensational patrons and members: Elad, Spencer Clark, Abhishek Singh, Lynn, KV Davey, Antegyu, Yining Gongs, Yam Lopez, The Great Wanderer Studios, Jeskirat Pondrath, Harley Spick, Hanan Gosseroni, Dave Toro, Neil Pollack, Builder Bull, Samuel, Christoph Wabno, OU June, 3D Monkey Biz, Kaler, Jake, She Was Lost, Pierre-Marie Burton, Zhao Hang Lu, Braganay, Chris Schultz, Mariano Carnevale, Montgomery, Bob, MoWorks Limited, Aaron, Arlen, and everybody else on the list. Thank you so much. You're part of this. Follow me on Instagram at Ojeng. Subscribe, share, comment, drink lots of water. Let's go. So I have this PureRef app that allows me to add images and have them always float on whatever it is that I'm working on, so I can always see a reference for what I'm modeling. So I'm just going to add a cylinder, scale it down. The size doesn't really matter now. We can scale it down to the right size later. Let me reduce the height segments. And that looks okay. Yeah, that looks fine. I'll make it editable and I'll remove both caps. And let's see from all angles. So I'm going to delete 1/2. And then I'm going to put this in a symmetry tool. So I only need to work on 1/2. I'm going to select this edge loop. And with MT, I'm going to extrude it inside. And then I'm going to select these 2 points, 2 vertices, and hit MU. And then I can set point value on the X to 0. So now they're aligned to the center. And now I'm going to select this edge loop and control drag it down to create this lip. Cool. And then MT to extrude that backwards to kind of inside. And then control drag it down. And then I'm going to extrude it again inwards, just to create that kind of slope upwards. And I can edit the extrude settings in the window. Then I can select all the middle points, hit MU, and set 0 on the x-axis. And now everything is aligned to the center. So now I tried to create this bell shape from that side, but I actually undid it and I went to the middle and I did it from this side. I think it'll be better. So I selected these 4 edges and I'm just control dragging and rotating, control dragging and rotating. I'm looking at all angles and I'm slowly creating the slope. I'm starting to scale them inwards on one axis, and I'm always looking at the reference and I'm just trying to match it as much as I can. It doesn't have to be 1000% identical. Then I'm gonna hit MU, set the x-axis to 0 so they both align to the center. And I'm just going to select these outer points and just scale them inwards. That looks okay. And I can make this even thinner. And yeah, I'm just kind of adjusting. If I put it in a subdivision surface, it looks good. I can make the slope even stronger. Cool. Now I'm going to hit ME for the polygon pen tool. And I'm just going to control drag one edge to another, and it kind of welds them together. So control drag, and it kind of sticks to the next edge. And I control drag this here, but I actually don't like that the connection is so kind of pinched. As you can see, there's no bevel. So I'm going to hit KL for a loop cut, and I'm just going to add an edge there and then drag these edges in, so that the edge won't be that kind of pinched and sharp. And I'm just going to do that from the other side as well, because I think it works. So KL, add this loop cut, and then drag those points inwards to create a more beveled edge. And then I can select these polygons and just drag them down so that we get this beveled edge. And that looks good. Let's just adjust this edge, and now I'm kind of thinking, how do I connect these two together? And I'm trying to think. I mean, I'm not really good at modeling, so I'm sure a lot of good modelers kind of like face palm so hard, and they're like, dude, it's so obvious. But what I ended up doing is, first of all, drag this center in, and then I ended up just deleting this lip and also that one from this edge, and I control dragged this edge inwards and kind of scale it down a little. And then I just used the ME, the polygon pen tool, to merge between these points so that I have this kind of polygon flow, which seems right. And I did the same thing here, delete this lip, delete that lip, and then drag a new edge and then merge these edges together with the polygon pen tool. And again, just select all the center points, hit MU, and just make sure they're all set at 0. Yeah, that looks right. Just raising this a little up and then control dragging it down. And now I can connect this edge with that one. So I'm selecting that point. And if I can get that point, I can't select it for some reason, so I'm just selecting it from here. I'm kind of pushing it away so I can drag it back in with the polygon pen tool and merge them. Nice, so now I got this edge loop, as you can see, works perfect. I'm gonna drag it down and then scale it up so it'll go kind of inwards into that slope under. And this whole clutch, butterfly clutch, is a pretty complex model. You know, it looks simple, but it's pretty complex, at least for me. So I'm just gonna try my best. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, but there's gonna be a few tricky things here. I'm just gonna select these points and just flatten that top a little bit. And I can also make this a bit thinner. And then also drag those bottom points and make it flatter. That looks cool. Now let's go to our symmetry object and tick clamp points on axis and delete points on axis. And now we can hit current state to object. And now we got this whole object as one. And because we ticked those options, it welded the center points. So now we can select all of that bottom edge and just extrude it inwards. And let's maybe try, let's change the rotation angle to 0. And then we can scale up the offset. So that would be where the needle goes in, right? Let's extrude. Let's control drag that edge up. Maybe a little more. Then MT and extrude this outwards. And then control drag it down. So we're kind of creating the part where the needle goes in. And then extrude this outwards. And then again extrude it outwards. Cool. So that's going to be kind of the inside part and where those two butterfly clips attach to. So let's create one of the butterfly clips. So I'm going to add a polygon object and I'm kind of going to align it, and then I'm going to make it editable and just select one edge and control drag it and kind of move around the edges and control drag them to slowly create this clip thing, this kind of wing. And it can be kind of jaggedy because we're going to add a subdivision surface, which is going to round it out. So we actually don't want too many segments on this so that the subdivision surface will have a easier time rounding it out. And I'm just selecting each part and bringing it up on the y-axis. And let's kind of bring it in so it won't touch that handle. Yeah, that looks good. Can pull that side even further. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So let's just kind of make this edge a bit more round, and let's add more subdivisions here because that's the part that's going to attach to this center hole thing. So we need more segments, and we're going to connect each segment to that center hole segment. So let's just MO and slide each point so we can align it better. And then just bring these points outwards so that they can go inside into the under the handle. And you can see in the reference, it's probably connected there, but it doesn't have to be because, I mean, you're barely going to see that part. Let's scale it down, bring it in even closer. That looks like it'll fit. I'm counting those segments to see if they will align together. Let's bring down that edge and then just control drag it. and then bring it down even more. We want it to kind of fit under. And then let's select this edge and start control dragging it. And we're going to create this kind of rounded hole. I don't know if you can see, but there's these it's a really weird shape. You'll see what we're going to do. Let's actually let's align these points together. And now I want to copy this butterfly and rotate it. And then we'll attach each one individually. So I'm going to duplicate this object, I'm going to rotate it, and I'm going to align it kind of mirroring the other one, just like the example. And, you know, I'm kind of eyeballing it. Doesn't have to be pixel perfect, but now I'm going to select both of them, drag them into our object, and merge them all together. So now it's all one object. And now we can start merging them. I'm going to hit ME for the polygon tool, and I'm dragging every other edge to every other edge. And that just connects all the edges. And I'm doing the same here. I'm dragging every other edge to every other edge. That looks good. And I'll kind of round out this part here, and the same thing here. I'll add another edge and just round it out. Cool. And now let's continue making this connection where both clips kind of meet on the edge. So I'm just selecting each edge and I'm control dragging it and rotating. And then with the ME polygon tool, I'm just merging them together. And I'm doing the same thing here, just creating same thing where I follow the edge of the whole clutch. I'm merging them together. And as you can see, the points are not aligned on their y-axis. It kind of goes up here. So I'm clicking on that point, seeing what's its y position. Then I'm selecting all the other points and hit MU. I'm going to leave X the same and then set Y to whatever that position was. So now they're all aligned to the same Y position. And now I'm going to hit UL and select that edge loop. And I'm going to set them all on the same Y position as well and just drag them down. And then I'm just going to round out the very edges. You can barely see it, but you know, it's better to do it. And that's kind of going into that edge lip. Just going to scale it up. And that looks great. Now let's select this edge loop. And this one as well. And just select that top edge as well. And control drag it down. And we're now creating this dimensionality to the clips. Just going to select these edges and drag them, scale them up, kind of align them correctly. And I'm just kind of dragging them and scaling them so that they'll both have obviously the same scale and position. And now with the ME tool, with the polygon pen tool, I'm just going to select each edge and drag it, control drag it to the other edge so I can close that hole. I'm going to do the same thing here. Control drag, control drag. And there's one more underneath. So control drag. And on the other side as well. Nice. And we can leave it like this, but I want to select this bottom loop, and I just want to extrude it inside, if it makes sense. I don't know why, it kind of bothered me. I tried to extrude them, but it created this nasty protruding corner thing. So what I did is I selected this edge and just try to round out this very sharp corner. And the same thing here. As you can see, this corner is very sharp, so I just was trying to make it less sharp. And also here the same way. And then if I select that edge and extrude it, it doesn't get that janky, and I can play with the rotation to rotate it inwards. And even if it's not perfect, doesn't matter, you don't really see it. So I just want to bevel these edges so that the edge will be sharper. So I'm trying to select the edge loop, but it won't really let me. So I'm just kind of manually selecting all these edges. Then deselecting this, then selecting this edge as well, and then hit MS and just bevel it by a very tiny bit. I don't need a lot. I just needed to not round out when I add the subdivision. And as you can see, now the edges are sharp. And we are almost done. That looks pretty good. I mean, this looks kind of too pinched. So let me just kind of smooth out these edges by making the angle less extreme. So I'm just kind of scaling them inwards just by a little bit. And now if I add a subdivision, it doesn't jank out as much. And also I want to select this edge loop and add a little bit of bevel to it again, so it won't round out too much. And same thing here, select this, MS, and then add a bevel, and same thing with these guys. And that just allows these corners to keep their shape when I add the subdivision surface. Now the last thing we can do, it's not a big deal, but I want to create these slits. I don't know if you can see in the example, there's these kind of slits. It's not a full cylinder. So I know there's a better way to do it, I know. But what I ended up doing was delete these polygons and add a loop cut. Then click MO to slide it down and align it with the base. Then I can delete these inside polygons. And now with the polygon pen tool, just drag these and fill in these holes. I'm dragging one edge to another. And I'm just closing these holes with the polygon pen tool. And again here. And now I just need to bevel the edges. So I'm just going to select all these edges. And I kind of had to do these ones manually because I just need those edges to be rounded out. So I just ended up selecting them manually. I know there's a better way to do it. I know. I should have probably just deleted all that part and just extruded up these points only. But hey, you live and you learn. So then I just beveled it by a little bit and it's cool. Now we got these slits, which kind of feels more like, I don't know, an actual thing. But that's it. The last thing I want to add, the bottom usually has these protruding nits, I guess, to hold the clutch in position. So I'm just going to add this edge loop. And I'm going to select these points. Make sure only select visible is checked. And I'm selecting these oppositional points. And I'm going to hit MS to bevel them. And then I'm going to select these inner points. I just want to make that shape more square. So I'm just going to scale these down and then select these outer points and scale them down as well. And I'm just getting a more squarish shape. I'm going to select all these polygons, hit MW to extrude inner. So it kind of creates this polygon on the inside. And then I'm going to do it again, but with no subdivisions. Now I'm going to drag down these centered polygons. Now I have these kind of like knit shape. I'm going to add an edge loop in the center, hit shift to align it to the center of each part. And now when I add the subdivision, it doesn't round out. That looks pretty good to me. I'm not going to go crazy over this. Just one last thing. Once we kind of rounded it out, we have these kind of glitchy surface. And that's because we need to pull these points a bit further from our knit because we got these overlapping polygons once we subdivided. So just select each 2 points, scale them up. And now when you add the subdivision, it's smooth and dandy. And I'm just going to add one more edge loop and just scale up the base so the base is a bit more straight and then it starts to taper. So all I'm doing is adding an edge loop at the base of each one and scaling it up. And now the base is a bit more straight and then it starts to taper. It just looks a bit more realistic, but that's it. So now let's make the other rubber clutch, which is a much simpler shape. So I'm adding a cylinder. Again, size doesn't matter. I'm going to increase the rotation segments. 22 is fine. I'm going to decrease the height segment, make it editable, delete all the caps. And I'm going to add another edge to the center here. I'm going to hit shift to align it to the center. And on the opposite center, I'm going to do the same. And now I'm going to delete this half and also delete this quarter. So now we're left with a quarter, and now I can add this to a symmetry object, and then add the symmetry object to another symmetry object and rotate the child symmetry 90 degrees. And now all we need to do is create 1/4, and it'll create the rest for us, which is much easier. So I'm going to select this edge by hitting UL, extrude it inwards. I'm going to align the rotation at 0 degrees, and that looks fine. I'm going to select this point and align it to 0Z position. Cool. Now I'm going to select this edge like we did last time. Drag, rotate, control, drag, rotate, control, drag, rotate to create the handle. I'm going to select these center points, hit MU and set X to 0 centimeters. And now they're aligned to the center. And I'm just going to dial in this shape. So I'm going to MO slide this point on the surface. And the same thing here, and the same thing with this one. And that looks pretty good. Now you can select these center points and just drag them up to create a more round curve. Maybe drag that one in. Yeah, that looks fine. And now we need to connect them. So I'm going to select this edge, and I'm going to just control drag it in and scale it. And I'm going to kind of eyeball it. And I only dragged it on 2 axes, so I know it stayed on the same axis as the other edge. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to select this edge and drag only on 2 axes and scale it down and kind of align them. It doesn't need to be perfect because we're going to merge them. So now I'm going to hit ME and merge this point with this point. And it looks pretty good. Now I'm thinking how to connect them. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select this edge and not the whole loop. Okay, so the best thing would be to select this edge, drag it down on its y-axis. Just drag it down and then and align it to the y position of the other point of that base, which is 1.1 here, 1.16. Then I'm going to select this point and merge it with this point using the polygon pen tool. And then again, use the polygon pen tool and just click and drag, and it adds a point, and then you can merge that point with the other point. Actually, it's super easy and probably the best way to do it, or probably there's a better way to do it. Then I'm going to just, again, with the polygon pen tool, merge these points together. And that looks pretty good. Now the center is a bit too slopey for me. I'm going to need to bevel that connection. So let's merge the symmetry object. So I'm going to clamp points on axis, delete polygon on axis, and then do the same thing on the parent symmetry. Make this one editable, and then make this symmetry object editable. And now we got one single object. And then I'm going to select this loop with UL and hit MS to bevel this out just a little bit. And if we apply the subdivision surface, now you can see that the edge is much more defined. And one more thing that I want to add is I want to add that kind of spherical embossing thing that probably happens from the mold that they create these clutches. So I'm going to add a point here. I'm going to add 2 more points there. I'm going to drag these out by scaling them on that axis. Then I tried to bevel this, but it won't bevel it out into a polygon. That's because I need to connect this point with these other points with the knife tool and bevel it. Now it creates a polygon from that point. And as you can see, when I add a subdivision surface, it rounds it out. I'm going to select these polygons. I'm going to MW to extrude inner. Make sure preserve groups is checked. Just extrude it inside a little bit and then control drag it down. And now if I add the subdivision surface, it's not that round. It's kind of squarish, but I think that's because we have this inner cuts. So I'm going to select these edges and I'm going to hit MN to dissolve them. And now it's perfectly round. And that's all I need. I'm going to select this edge loop and I'm going to extrude it. Something like this. And I'm going to control drag this edge up. I'm going to hit MD and fill that polygon hole. I'm going to bevel the edge. And I'm going to make sure the depth is set at 100 so that the edge is rounded out. And that looks pretty good. I actually don't need this edge, so maybe I do. Okay, I'm going to leave that edge. All right. Then probably want to select this edge as well and just bevel it out too so that it won't be that round. I do want the top edge to be round, but the bottom edge to not be that round. So maybe even less bevel, kind of something like this. Yeah. So now the bottom is much more flat than the top. I think that's it. That looks great. So now let's texture them. So I'm going to paste both clutches into our pin scene. Gonna rotate them. Obviously they're way too big, but we're gonna scale them down. Let's align them to the center, and again align them to the center, and we're just gonna kind of really eyeball it till it feels right. And we might have to adjust the hole in our clutches to fit the needle size. And let's just make sure it's really aligned to the center. Cool. So let's look at the butterfly clutch. It's pretty good. The needle size seems okay. Yeah, everything actually looks pretty perfect. Let's render it out and let's put them both in the group. So we can rotate the group, and let's add the gold material. Yeah, that looks perfect. Amazing. Let's texture this rubber clutch. So let's add a glossy material. Let's add it to the clutch. Let's change the BRDF mode to Beckman. Change the diffuse to almost black. Reduce the specular a little bit. Up the roughness by at least half. We want it pretty rough. And now we can end it here, but I kind of want to add these very subtle bump. I mean, this is so unnecessary, but whatever. Let's add a noise. Let's add a XYZ to UVW projection, and let's scale it way down. Again, so unnecessary, but I feel like if you zoom in, you want to be able to see these kind of tiny bumps. So this is way too much. Let's add a gradient node in between, and let's make the black 50 and the white 51. Up the contrast and up the details, but let's actually make it 50.5. So there's barely any contrast. Let's up the gamma. I think let's change the type to circular. And if we up the gamma, yeah, that looks much better. Yeah, I feel like that works. Scale it down. And yeah, that works much better. I think I'm gonna stop here. It's a perfectly beautiful rubber clutch, and you can change the colors. They're usually black, but they come in all colors. And that is it. Look at that. It's a beautiful thing. We concluded the whole enamel pin. We got the clutches, different clutches. We got different materials, different types of pins. That's awesome. I fucking love pins. Show me what you created. You can also check out my Gumroad. Get the pack there. It's pretty cheap. It's not that crazy. It's mostly if you're kind of looking for an easy way to add your own graphics. Unfortunately, you can't make your own custom shapes. That just requires too much work. You can do it yourself by watching the tutorial, really. And that's it. What else? I don't know what else. I'll see you in the next one. I love you. Have a great day. Peace.